May the words of my mouth and the meditation of our hearts be acceptable to you, O Lord, Creator, Redeemer, and Sustainer. Amen. I got a secret to share with you. I've always loathed dodgeball. I remember having to play it in gym class when I was, 6, 7, 8. I'm pretty sure everyone in the entire class knew that I was terrified of the ball. And it wasn't that it was fast, things were going too fast. It's just that I wore glasses. And I was really worried that the ball would hit me in my glasses and break them. And my parents would be really, really mad at me. But the reason I really didn't want to play, I'm being perfectly honest here, is because it hurt when the ball hit me. It really hurt. So, of course, I became everybody's favorite target in my entire class. They always tried to shoot it at me. Or, so it felt to me. It might not have been the case, but it seemed like it. The teacher didn't care much whether I was scared or not because everybody had to play every game. So I had no choice. We're playing this game. Why won't you play? That's the feeling that I got. Jesus said to the crowd, "To what will I compare this generation? You're like children sitting in the marketplaces calling to one another. We played the flute for you, and you did not dance." Sometimes we don't want to play the game. For the past few weeks, I've taken some verbal battering from some white people that I know who have felt the need to set me straight when I say Black Lives Matter. All lives matter, they say to me with some heat. White, red, yellow lives matter as much as black ones. It doesn't matter what color they are. Their brows are all furrowed and their voices are all raised. And it's not a fair thing to say, they say. And I used to just let it go because it's easier sometimes not to push things. One has to play nice, right? That's what we were taught from the time we were children. Or so I've been told. But I am too old and too exasperated at this point to stay quiet. I point out to these very well-meaning people, usually, that it's not that when you say Black Lives Matter, it doesn't mean only Black Lives Matter, because everybody knows that white lives have always mattered. There's never been a point in our history when white lives haven't mattered. It is literally not even a thing that white lives don't matter. And so what I guess I'm trying to tell them is all lives will matter only when Black lives matter. Only then, I guess, I'm thinking, well, we have fairness. They say it's not fair, but the fairness will come when all lives matter because Black lives matter. They aren't left out of the game. Now, these friends, these white friends and relatives, I might say, are well-meaning, very well-meaning. But these white children of God have never had the experience of being looked at with suspicion and hostility and have the police called on them when they are merely walking down the street, their street where they own a house. Just because they're black. These lovely white people will never be stopped by the police and harassed for driving too nice a car. And that's a kind of a regular thing for black people. I recently read a story about a white woman who had just relocated back to Michigan, where she had always been from. And she liked to drive around with her large standard poodle sitting in the seat, riding shotgun right next to her. And she wrote that she was increasingly puzzled, but she kept being stopped for strange reasons by the police. And this had never happened to her before. She said she was stopped for running a red light. No, I think it was a stop sign, for running a stop sign. And she said, I know I didn't run a stop sign. I sat there at the stop sign. I remember looking and then I went on. She said, but they stopped me anyway. The next time they stopped her was for driving too slowly. I can honestly say I've never been stopped for driving too slowly. But she was worried enough that she went to the the place where she gets her car done, and she had them check her speedometer, and it was fine. So she was really careful from then on how fast she was driving, and she got stopped again for driving too slowly, and again, and again. And at this point she was thinking, what is going on? Why do I keep getting stopped? And it was only several weeks later that she realized that when you were driving behind her in the car, her large black standard poodle from the back looks like the head of a tall black man who would be sitting next to her in the car. And it started to all come together when she realized that they had been approaching her from the passenger side of her car, which she thought was weird, but she couldn't figure out why. Now, of course, she was let go all these times when they, realized that it was a dog in the car and not a black man. But she said, I was really starting to get a little creeped out by them stopping me all the time and starting to really get paranoid about what was going on. She said, I started to somewhat, in a very small way, understand what black people are going by when they keep getting stopped for things that really are unimportant. And she said, and I never felt the whole time I was being stopped that I was in danger of dying. But she said it was creepy enough so that she thought about relocating back to where she had come from during that whole thing. Now, some of my friends that read this have posted in the comments that they don't believe this story. They think it was made up. So I don't know why they would think that, because we have countless stories about how black people are stopped every day for driving while black. I mean, basically there are no reasons why they're being stopped, and yet they're being stopped all the time. Could it be that the truth is we just don't want to hear about this, so we say it's a lie? Is there something inside us that feels complicit? Is that why we're reacting like this? Because really, I don't understand why we would not be really taking this a little bit more seriously. I don't know. Do we find ourselves speaking heatedly when we want to assuage our real or imagined guilt? Is that why we're doing that? Jesus said, you are like children who say, we wailed and you did not mourn. Have any of you been taken to task by anybody for standing up for our black brothers and sisters as they work to dismantle the systemic racism that was built into this country? If so, I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry. I mean, as Christians, we're encouraged to love. But then when we do, there are these unwritten rules about the people who we should love, or more importantly, who we shouldn't love. We shouldn't love our enemies, or people that step out of the mainstream of society, or people who are of different colors or religions, or people who don't agree with us. We don't have to love those people. And sometimes it feels like we try and try and try to do the right thing, but it's either too much for some or not enough for other people. John came neither eating nor drinking, and they say he has a demon. The Son of Man came eating and drinking, and they say, look, a glutton and a drunkard. Yet wisdom is vindicated by her deeds. Yes, indeed. We will see the wisdom of our behaviors by what kind of fruit they bear. We will see what springs from our deeds. Now, strangely, I'm tempted to see the Spirit's hand in everything that's happening. The pandemic, the hardships, the protests. And I don't mean to say, and don't take me to say that you think I'm saying that the Spirit is causing all of these things to happen. But I am saying that God's Spirit can work through any situation, no matter how desperate. Here's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing many followers of Jesus being very brave indeed. Until now, we didn't have the strength, I don't think, as a white race of people, to look at our faults of selfishness, greed, and systemic racism right in the eye. I just don't think we could do that before. We've always tended to look back, reminiscing about the days gone by when everything was better, you know this, when people all just got along. I mean, haven't you heard these things? In other words, we've too often succumbed to that age-old disease of nostalgia. Well, in reality, for many, many people, things were not perfect in the past. I don't think it takes a crystal ball to see that there was no time in our history that things were perfect. Not for everyone. But I'm hopeful that we are now brave enough to face that. And why are we brave? Because of love. If there's one thing that the pandemic and the protests and everything else has shown us, it's that we are one world community. And what happens to one person or one country or one group of people really does affect us all. When we harm one race or one person or one country, we harm everyone. Everyone is affected worldwide. But I see bravery all around me. It's just stunning. I don't think I've ever witnessed this in my lifetime. Even when we are weary and carrying too much to bear, maybe especially because we're all weary and carrying too much to bear, that I am struck by the bravery. And why are we feeling brave? Because of Jesus. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, he says, for I am gentle. And I don't think I'm better than anyone else. Take what I carry, he says. I think the time has come to follow Jesus into this brave new world of love. Come take on some of God's outrageous love that sees everyone. Love that unapologetically stands for justice for all, health care for all, love that speaks out fearlessly for people of color and will walk with anyone who is not being treated equally, and will say, enough. It's enough. There's a lot to lose heart about right now, and a lot to worry about, but take heart, valiant ones. In all this turmoil, something new and hopeful is starting, and we're here to witness the history of this event. Something is starting to emerge that's new. Unfettered love for our brothers and sisters. Like we sang in the first hymn this morning. Do you remember what we sang in the first hymn this morning? What we sang in the first hymn this morning was this: with unfailing love, God holds us, every child of every race. And when human hearts are breaking under sorrow's iron rod, then we find that self-same aching deep within the heart of God. I had no idea we were singing that this morning until I started singing it, and I started to get all choked up because it was so true. Carry that yoke that is easy to bear, that is easy to carry, easy to remember because it only consists of one word, one thing: love. That's the only thing we have to remember. There are no qualifications, there are no exceptions, there are no excuses. Because we are Jesus's, and his love makes us brave. Amen.